quiet medieval wedding, village bells and simple vows. Asterisk, asterisk, let it settle. Feel the weight of your body soften into stillness. There's no rush. Let your thoughts slow, like autumn leaves drifting gently to the earth, wherever you are tucked beneath. Covers, lying in stillness, or listening as the day winds down, this is your time to rest. To wander gently into a quieter world. Let the hum of the modern world fade away and allow something older, slower to take its place. Imagine soft winds whispering through tall grass, sky wide and pale blue, touched by wisps of cloud. The distance, faint chimes from a chapel bell drift lazily through the air. The sound is soft, call not to hurry, but to listen. To feel you are safe, you are calm. And our story today begins in a countryside forgotten by time, beyond the edge of the forest, where brambles soften into meadows, and meadows roll into open fields. There lies a quiet village, Eldenwick, not marked on any great map, not known to kings or chroniclers. It is the kind of place where time drips, not marches, where days are long and the rhythm of life is tied to the sun, to the soil, to the slow beat of hooves on earth. Eldenwick wakes with the light, not a harsh awakening, no clamor, no horns, just the soft creak of wooden shutters opening to morning air. The low cluck of hens, steady, slow clop of a mule being let out for water. And today, something else. A hum beneath it all, feeling in the breeze. It is a wedding day, not of lords or ladies, not a union sealed by scroll or scribe. This is the wedding of Elric, the thatcher's son, and Linnet, daughter of the village baker, two souls known by every neighbor, faces seen daily at the well, the fields, the chapel pews. Their love is not a tale of storms and stars, but of shared glances across flower-dusted windows, of laughter at harvest, of hands brushing as they tied sheaves of grain. Their wedding will not be grand, but it will be beautiful. The sun rises gently over the thatched rooftops, bathing the village in soft gold. The lane through Eldenwick is narrow, framed by woven hedges and low stone walls, worn smooth by time and touch. A group of children gather by the baker's home, weaving strands of wildflowers into rings, daisies, bluebells, and the pale purple of heather, all gathered from the nearby fields that morning, while dew still clung to every petal inside the bakery. The air is warm and rich with the scent of honeyed oatcakes and fresh bread. Lynette's mother, Marin, moves slowly between the hearth and the table, her flower-dusted hands still strong. She hums as she works, a tune older than memory, perhaps one her own mother sang, or her grandmother before that. Lynette sits quietly. At the corner bench, her long hair being braided with ribbons, a small mirror made of polished bronze reflects her calm expression. Her dress is simple, undyed wool, soft and hand-stitched, falling just above her ankles. Around her waist, a faded green sash embroidered with leaves, gifted by her grandmother outside. A neighbor gently strings a garland above the chapel door. Another stirs a pot of savory stew at the village hearth, built of old bricks near the green. Smoke curls lazily upward. It is a community affair. There are no guests from far away. Musicians brought in from cities, no ornate banners, but there is care in every gesture, joy in every movement. The whole village moves as one, each person offering something, whether a basket of apples, a jug of cider, or just a smile and helping hand. And in the meadow just beyond the village, beneath a great oak tree whose roots run deeper than any memory, a space is being cleared there, beneath that canopy of green, so the vows will be spoken. The great oak stands silent and steady. It is older than anyone in Eldenwick, even old Bryn, who remembers when the last crop of barley failed and the wolves came closer than they ought. The villagers say the tree has seen countless weddings, that its roots listen and its leaves hold secrets. This morning, its broad branches rustle gently. Soft breeze moves through them, as if the tree itself is preparing. A carpet of moss and scattered petals spreads beneath its limbs, dappled. By shifting light, Elric walks the path from his family's home to the tree. His tunic is freshly washed and still slightly damp at the seams. A sprig of lavender is tucked behind one ear, and his boots, though worn, been scrubbed clean. He carries a woven cord in his hand, green and gold, to bind his hand to Lynette's. It was made by his sister Elise, who now stands waiting by the oak, straightening a small bench for the elder to sit on. Everything is quiet here, no fanfare, just the whisper of wind, occasional bird call, and the gentle murmur of villagers, arriving in pairs and threes, taking their places on simple wooden benches. Some bring stools from their homes. Others sit on blankets laid on the grass. Everyone is smiling, even the dogs are calm, lounging beneath the benches or nosing quietly around for crumbs. And somewhere near the back, an old man gently tunes a reed pipe. The melody he plays is slow and round like a lullaby, drawn out on wind. Time stretches here, does not hurry. From the small stone chapel at the village's edge, the bell begins to ring. It is not loud, not the thunderous clang of cathedral towers. This bell is small, it sounds soft and shimmering like light across water. It rings once, twice, a third time. Each note drifts on the air like a blessing. Lynette steps out from her home. She is not veiled, her face is not hidden. Her smile is quiet and her eyes are full of steady light. Beside her walks her mother, and behind them, her cousins carry small garlands and handfuls of herbs, rosemary, lavender, and thyme as they pass through the village. People offer gentle nods, kind words. No finer day for a wedding. She looks like her mother did years ago. She's walking just as her gran once did, to the same oak tree. The walk is short, but every step feels timeless. When Lynette arrives at the tree, Elric is already waiting. He smiles, his hand opening to hers without a word. The elder, a woman named Iseld, steps forward, wrapped in a woolen shawl and carrying a wooden bowl filled with rainwater and petals. No long sermons, no scrolls to be signed. The hand fasting is simple. Elric and Lynette hold hands, palms pressed together. Iseld dips her fingers into the rainwater, sprinkling a few droplets over their joined hands. "This water fell from the sky," she says softly, "and so shall your love fall freely, quietly, and from a place beyond your knowing." She takes the cord, green for growth, gold for warmth, and wraps it around their hands once, twice, 3 times. Your paths now wind together. Where one goes, the other follows. May your home be filled with bread, your nights with peace, and your hearts with patience. Elric speaks first. "I have seen the seasons change beside you. I will see them change again. I offer you my steadiness, my laughter, and my shelter. And, Lynette, I have known your voice in the dark and your hands in the harvest. I offer you my care, my courage, and my quiet." The cord is tied, not in a tight knot. It's just a gentle binding. It's meant to be undone later by the couple themselves when they return home and begin their shared life. The elder smiles. It is done. And somewhere in the village, the bell chimes once more, soft and round like a lullaby. The story will continue from here into the feast. Twilight dances, the slow fade of evening into dreams. But for now, the vows have been spoken, the hands unbound, though still joined. Now the village shifts, like a murmuring brook, toward the green, the wide open patch between the smithy and the old well. Where a long table has been laid, there are no carved chairs or draped linens, just planks of wood set upon barrels and crates, long benches smoothed by years of use, and clay cups waiting to be filled. At the center of it all, a loaf of bread, round and golden, baked that morning by Marin Lynette's mother. Pressed into the top is a circle of herbs, rosemary for memory, thyme for courage, sage for wisdom. Around the loaf, others have placed their offerings: apples polished to shine, small wheels of cheese, a dish of honeycomb, bowls of salted barley, and a jug of elderflower cider that catches the light like liquid gold. There is no head of the table. Everyone simply finds their place. Neighbors beside neighbors, children beside elders, hands reaching to pass bowls, to break bread, to pour and refill and share. Elric sits beside Lynette, his hand resting gently against hers, never holding too tight. They speak little, only exchanging small glances and quiet smiles, like old secrets told in silence. The first bite of bread is shared between them. He breaks it in half. She dips her piece in honey, and and together they taste the beginning of something new. As the meal continues, the sounds of the village change. There is laughter now, not loud, not raucous, but soft and full, like leaves rustling high above. A laugh that begins in the chest and ripples outward, drawing smiles from others. Echoing from one bench to the next, stories are told mostly by the old men who remember when Elric was small and bold, chasing chickens through the market stalls. Someone mentions the day Lynette slipped and dropped an entire tray of dough into the well. She laughs with them, cheeks warm, her head resting lightly on Elric's shoulder. A dog barks, then lies down again. A child sings an off-key tune, is gently hushed, then allowed to sing again. No one is in a hurry. The food comes in waves. Nothing fancy, just enough. Porridge sweetened with dried fruit. Stew simmered in a great black pot. Flat cakes made with lard and ash-baked onions. Every bite is a memory. Yes. Every sip a kindness. As the sun lowers behind the trees, casting the long table in stripes of gold and shadow, a hush falls across the gathering. Someone brings out a harp, its strings slightly worn. It sounds soft, like rain on thatch. A melody begins, and soon voices join, singing an old wedding song that no one quite remembers learning, they just know it. Deep in their bones, it is not a performance. It is a lullaby for the dusk. As twilight gathers, the lanterns are lit. Not grand torches, but small vessels, glass jars, and hollowed gourds, each with a bit of wax or oil in a wick. They are placed on fence posts, hung from low branches, nestled into window ledges. Their glow is soft, a hush in light form. Children carry some of them along the village path, forming a gentle procession that winds from the green to the great oak, circling the meadow once more. Elric and Lynette follow behind, their steps in rhythm, their fingers laced as they pass. Villagers nod to them, a tap of the chest, a murmur of blessed be. A touch to the heart. They are now husband and wife, though no one speaks it loud. It's not a title to wear, but a truth to live. Quiet and deep, like roots spreading under soil. At the base of the oak tree, someone has placed a bundle of herbs, a blessing for fertility, for patience, for restful sleep. Lynette bends to inhale its scent. Chamomile, lavender, a trace of mint. Her eyes flutter closed, just for a moment. When she opens them, the stars have begun to appear. Back on the green, the benches are cleared. The table is pushed to one side. The earth beneath is stamped flat by many feet, ready for dancing. There are no musicians from the city, only Thomas, who plays the flute when his cows are calm, and Myra, who drums on a hollow log, and Ewan, who sings in rounds with whoever joins him. The first dance is slow, not courtly, not polished. A circle forms. Hands are joined, and the villagers begin to move in a slow weave, steps marking time with the heartbeat of the land. Elric and Lynette step into the ring. They do not lead, and they do not follow. They move as part of the whole, gliding, turning, exchanging quiet smiles with their neighbors as they pass. The dust rises gently underfoot, catching in the lantern light like gold spun into the air. Someone claps, another sings, and the night begins to hum. Children spin in dizzy loops. Old couples sway gently, cheek to cheek, and the circle never truly breaks. It simply shifts, reforms, expands, and contracts like breath. Overhead, stars wheel slowly in the sky. Later, when feet grow tired and the music slows, the green is dotted with small gatherings. Grandmother sits with a child in her lap. It's telling stories about her own wedding, how her husband dropped the ring in the brook, and they had to dive after it in their best clothes. Two teenagers lean close beneath an arch of honeysuckle, blushing and quiet, and Elric and Lynette sit together on the edge of the well, sipping cider from the same clay cup. "I never thought it would feel like this," Lynette whispers, her voice barely louder than the night wind. "Like what?" Elric asks, like, ... Everything is full." He nods. "It is, but gently so." The village elder approaches them as Seld, her shawl drawn close against the cool. She places a hand on each of their shoulders. "You've begun well," she says, her voice like worn wood and warm bread. "Now continue gently." They nod. No grand speeches. No oaths, shouted to the heavens. Just three people in the quiet, and a world that seems, just for a while, to hold its breath. Later still, after the lanterns dim and the green grows quiet, Elric and Lynette walk hand in hand toward the small cottage that now belongs to them both. It was his grandfather's once, then empty, then filled again, bit by bit, with gifts from neighbors, a wool blanket, a stack of clay bowls, a broom bound with sweetgrass, a small black cat who simply moved in one day and never left. They push open the door. The hearth is still, warm. The bed is neatly made with linens from Lynette's mother and a pillow stitched with her initials. There is no ceremony here. No need for it. Just two people barefoot, a little dusty, quietly tired and deeply content. They light a candle. They sit on the edge of the bed. They remove the green and gold cord from earlier, now resting on a shelf, and wrap it once around. The bedpost not to bind, but to bless. I think the cat's asleep on my side, Elric murmurs. She was there first. Lynette smiles, and together they laugh softly, sleepily, as the night settles thick and gentle around them. Outside, the wind rustles the trees. Inside, breath slows, and sleep comes. The sun returns to Eldenwick without hurry. Light spills slowly across rooftops, turning dew into silver. A rooster crows from somewhere behind the mill, not urgently, just as it always has, marking the soft passage of time. Inside the small cottage, Elric stirs. His eyes open not to sound, but to scent a waft of smoke from the hearth. The faint sweetness of crushed lavender under the windowsill, and something warm. Bread, again. Lynette is already up. She moves quietly around the hearth, folding herbs into dough. She hums under her breath, a tune with no name, and the cat curls beside her, tail flicking slowly. Elric watches her from the bed, not speaking yet. There is something sacred in silence shared this way, the hush before words return, the stillness before routine begins. He finally rises, bare feet padding across the smoothed floor. No rush, no plans. Just morning, they eat together oat cakes and tea brewed with nettle and mint, then wash the cups. Then begin the day not as newlyweds, but simply as Elric and Lynette. Together, outside the village is waking too. A wheel squeaks. A door creaks open. A bucket is lowered into the well. And so, the first day of their shared life begins, not with fire or fanfare, but with calm. The days that follow are stitched with simple joys. Lynette returns to the bakery. Her mother greets her with a warm nod and a dusting of flour. Together, they knead and shape, braid and bake. The scent of barley bread drifts through the lanes. Neighbors stop by with coin or barter, a bundle of wool, a jar of pickled beets, copper brooch. Elric returns to the thatching crew, working. Alongside men with sun-darkened necks and quiet hands, he climbs roofs, smooths bundles of reed, tightens cords. His fingers blister, then callous again. Their paths cross mid-morning, sometimes at the well, sometimes just a glance across the square. No declarations, just steadiness. In the evenings, they return to the cottage, share whatever meal was brought or gathered, sweep the hearth, sit on the step as the stars rise. One night, Elric carves a small spoon from wood and places it by Lynette's bowl. Another night, Lynette stitches a patch onto his worn tunic, a patch shaped like a tiny oak leaf. And so, each day is woven into the next, not grand, not loud, but strong. Summer deepens. The hay is cut, the apples swell. The first gooseberries arrive, tart and bright. With the change of season comes a village feast, not for a wedding this time, but for Lugnasad, the festival of the harvests. Beginning again, the green is swept. Lanterns are hung. Music rises from the fingers of familiar neighbors. Elric and Lynette arrive together, hand in hand. Now there is something different about them, not visible, not worn like a crown. But since they move as one, Elric knows when Lynette is ready to leave just from a tilt of her head. Lynette knows when Elric's back aches, and brings him cider without asking. Old Isolde watches them from a bench, sipping her broth. She smiles. Later that evening, as firelight flickers and the first stars bloom in the sky, Lynette joins a circle of dancers. Elric plays the drum, keeping rhythm with slow, steady beats. The dust rises again, the music hums, and in the center of it all, beneath garlands of hops and ivy, a new rhythm of love dances into the earth. Of course, not every day is smooth there. Is a morning when the loaf burns. Elric forgets to cover the fire. There is an afternoon when Lynette speaks too sharply, tired from kneading. Frustrated by a broken crock, voices rise briefly, then fall, and silence returns. But not a cold silence, a useful one. A silence that lets breath return, lets thoughts settle like dust after footsteps. Later, Elric brings a handful of wild berries. For the sweetness, he says, and leaves them on the table. Lynette touches his shoulder in passing lightly. Next time, she says, I'll handle the fire. And the moment passes, not erased, but folded gently into their days. It's like a patch into cloth. They learn slowly the art of mending not just clothes, moments. And that, too, is love. Autumn comes with cooler winds and earlier dark linen. Plants onion bulbs behind the cottage. Elric builds a fence of crooked branches to keep the chickens out. They plan together what might grow, cabbage leeks, be even peas if the frost is kind. The soil is dry and stubborn, but they loosen. They learn its mood. Some days they garden in silence. Some days they sing once. They find a small frog sleeping in the roots and leave him be. They do not name the garden. They do not expect miracles. They just tend it, day after day with soft hands and steady care. And beneath the surface, slow magic begins. One chilly morning, as fog curls around the well, a stranger arrives. She wears a cloak patched with many colors. Her hair is bound in braids, and her cart is filled with herbs, dried mushrooms, and little charms shaped from wax. She calls herself Myra of the Marsh, and says she passes through only with the turning leaves. The villagers regard her kindly, some curious, some cautious. She stays one night in Eldenwick, sharing stories by the fire. She reads palms, sings lullabies from the old tongue, and hands Lynette a small jar of salve for burned bread and tired hands. Before she leaves, she looks at Elric and Lynette and nods once. Keep tending, she says, even in frost. Then she disappears down the misty road. No one sees her go, but the jar remains on the cottage shelf, gleaming quietly. Snow comes. Softly in Eldenwick, no great storm. It's just a slow curtain of white that hushes everything. Roofs wear soft caps. Branches bow under the weight. Footsteps are muffled. Laughter thickens scarves. Inside the cottage, the hearth crackles. Elric and Lynette sit together, wrapped in the same wool blanket. He reads aloud from a worn book, stories of beasts and travelers, tales passed down by voices, not ink. Lynette embroiders a new curtain for the window, each stitch small, neat, precise. Outside, the snow deepens, but inside, there is only warmth. Pot of stew simmers slowly. The cat naps on the bench, and the cord, green and gold, still rests on the bedpost, as quiet as ever. As winter holds the village in its quiet grip, the pace slows. There are fewer chores, fewer visits. Evenings spent by firelight. More nights filled with long dreams and quiet breathing. Lynette begins to hum a new tune. One Elric doesn't know. Where did you learn that? He asks. I don't know, she says. Maybe I dreamed it. He drums a beat to match it soft. 3 taps and a pause. The song becomes theirs. One evening, Lynette sketches a garden in the ashes of the hearth. Rows of plants, tiny bees, a wooden gate. It'll come, she says. Spring. And Elric nods, though snow still clings to the eaves. Asterisk, because he believes her. The seasons turn, as they always do. What began as a wedding becomes a life quiet, woven with small rituals, seeded with care. And the story of Elric and Lynette continues, like a river under ice, slow, deep, always moving. Asterisk. The first sign of spring is not a flower, it is a sound, a quiet murmur underfoot, where snow begins to loosen its grip on the ground. A trickle of water weaving its way through hidden places, carrying with it the hush of renewal in the mornings. The frost still clings to the window panes. But the birds begin to sing again, uncertain at first, just a few notes. As if testing the air, Lean rises early to open the shutters. The light has changed, no longer thin and silver, but golden. Like butter warming in the pan, Elric walks the path behind the cottage and sees green tips poking up through the soil. The onion bulbs have survived. He kneels, brushes away a thin veil of snow, and hiffs. It is beginning. The quiet of winter begins to lift, not all at once, but slowly, respectfully, like a curtain rising on a well-worn stage, and life resumes. Its soft unfolding with the thaw. The garden becomes a place of focus again. Lynette begins to draw furrows with her fingers, mapping out where the cabbage will go, where the leeks will stand tall. She talks to the seeds in low tones, whispering encouragement as she presses them into the softened earth. Elric builds a new gate with wood from a fallen branch, not perfectly cut strong and well-fitted. He rubs oil into the grain and carves a small symbol on the inside panel, an oak leaf, their quiet emblem. Every evening they kneel beside the soil, removing stones, scattering compost, checking each row. They are not in a hurry. They plant what? They let the rest wait one day as they work. The neighbor's child wanders over a boy no older than 6, eyes wide with questions. Do seeds feel cold? He asks. Lynette smiles. Yes, but they're brave. The boy nods solemnly, then presses one seed into the ground with both thumbs, as if tucking it in. It rains for 2 days. Not a harsh rain, not a storm, just a steady rhythmic patter on rooftops and puddles, on thatch and turned earth. In the cottage, the windows are fogged with breath and warmth. The hearth burns low and steady. Elric mends a chair that lost its leg. Lynette sits by the window, weaving a new curtain in soft green thread. They speak little, just a word here, a hum there. Outside, the garden drinks deeply. The rain sounds like a lullaby, each drop a note, each gust of wind a phrase. That evening, after the rain fades into mist, Elric steps outside barefoot and stands in the wet grass. The sky is lavender with dusk, and the trees drip slowly around him. Lynette watches from the doorway. He looks back and says, I think the beans will like this. She nods, then joins him in the garden, barefoot too. They stand in silence, hands linked. Listening to the last drops fall from the branches, it feels like a blessing. Spring brings its own small miracles. One morning, opens the door and finds a basket placed gently outside. Inside, 6 warm eggs, a sprig of mint, and a folded cloth embroidered with a tiny stitched rabbit. No note, just a gift. She knows it's from Mela, the widow who lives near the chapel. Lynette had brought her fresh bread through the worst of winter. This is her quiet thanks. Lynette brings the basket inside and sets it on the table like a relic. Elric lifts an egg in his palm and says, we should make something special. Later that day, they crack the eggs into a pan, add foraged greens, and eat with their fingers, no plates. Just warm bites and grateful hearts. As they eat, the cat watches from the windowsill, tail twitching. She, too, seems to approve. Somewhere, a bell rings, not for a wedding this time, just for time itself. The rhythm of the village continues. On a breezy afternoon, the door creaks open, and there stands Isolde. Her shawl is patterned with threads of rust and blue, and her eyes are clear as spring water. May I sit? She asks. They bring her tea and a cushion for the bench. She accepts both with a nod and a small grunt of approval. I watched you to plant peas, she says. Good line, straight rows. The beans might be ambitious though, Lynette smiles. We'll keep them close to the fence. Isolde sips her tea, then sets the cup down. You've done well, she says at last. Not just with seeds, with each other. They nod, uncertain how to respond. You speak little, she adds. That's rare. But you listen, that's rarer. She stands to leave, then pauses at the threshold. Your cord, she says, nodding. Toward the green and gold length still looped around the bedpost. Keep it there. Not for luck. For memory, and she is gone. But her warmth lingers, like steam from the cup she left behind late in the season. A violet blooms beside the cottage wall. It wasn't planted. It simply appeared soft, open, alone. Linnet kneels. Beside it, fingers brushing its velvet petals. Elric comes to stand beside her. A guest, he says. She nods, a quiet one. They don't pick it, they let it grow. Each morning, Linnet checks to see if it's still there. Each evening, Elric brings a stone to set around it, a border of sorts, gentle protection. The flower becomes a symbol, not loud, not official. Just theirs. It watches as the peas climb, as the onions swell, as the chickens explore. And when a second flower appears 2 weeks later, Linnet smiles and says, it's beginning again. By midsummer, the cottage feels even more like home. The walls are strung with dried herbs. Table bears small scratches from use. The bed creaks slightly in the same place every night. One evening, Lynette lies with her head on Elric's chest, listening to the slow rhythm of his breath. Do you ever think of the wedding? She asks. Sometimes, he says, but mostly I think of this. This, here, now. She listens. In the distance, an owl calls once. The cat stretches on the hearth, log shifts in the fire. I liked the wildflowers, she says. At last, I liked the bread, he says. They laugh softly, and sleep finds them, not in haste, not in need. Just as a friend returning. One bright morning, the chapel bell rings, not for a wedding, nor for mourning, just because it's the midsummer feast, and tradition asks it so. Children chase each other through the lanes, ribbons tied to their sleeves. Neighbors bring out pies and stews. Someone erects a maypole in the field beyond the smithy. Linnet watches from the bench, her hand resting lightly on her stomach. Elric notices the gesture and says nothing, just reaches down and places his hand atop hers. They don't speak it yet, but they both know. Something small is growing. It's quiet and unseen, like the violet beneath the cottage wall. A new beginning. A soft rhythm, promise wrapped in silence. The bells continue to ring. The wedding was only the start. Now love grows not through ceremony, but through tending to soil, to silence, to one another. There is more to come. Autumn winds, quiet births, and the passing of seasons like breath. Asterisk. Lovely. Let's drift again into the tender hush of Eldenwick, where lanterns glow warm against early dusk. And new life begins, not with fanfare, but with quiet breath. The apples are ripe, blush red and sun-warmed. They fall with soft thuds into waiting baskets. The orchard at the village's edge is busy with laughter and quiet work. Families gather to pick, taste, and sort. Linnet carries a basket slower than usual, pausing often, one hand low on her belly. She feels the gentle weight growing inside. Not heavy yet, but certainly there. Elric walks beside her, taking more than his share of fruit so she doesn't have to. He tosses one apple to a passing child who shrieks with delight. 2 more. Weeks, Marin whispers to Linnet later that day, slicing an apple for drying. Maybe 3, if the weather's kind. Linnet smiles. She already knows. She feels the timing in her bones and the way her body shifts when she rises. It in the way her dreams have grown long and vivid, full of flowing water and green places. She doesn't speak of it much. She simply waits. Inside the cottage, preparations begin without discussion. Elric lines the hearth with extra moss and linen. Laying it beside the bench where Linnet likes to rest, he shortens the stool legs so she can sit more easily. He carves a small cradle from cedar, smoothing every edge. Testing it with his fingers a dozen times before setting it beside their bed, Linnet gathers soft scraps of wool and weaves them into a blanket. She lines a basket with rosemary. She places the green and gold. hand-fasting cord atop the cradles, edged not as a decoration, but as a blessing. The cat circles the cradle once, sniffs it, and curls up beside it as if in agreement. Outside, the air grows cooler, but inside, everything is warm and ready. The night before the child comes is windless. Still, the sky is heavy with stars. The moon hangs low, yellow, and full, as if watching. Lynette breathes slowly by the window, her hands cradling her belly. Elric sits close by, whittling a spoon he may not finish. They don't speak. There is nothing to say, just the hush of expectancy. Like a held breath before music, the old midwife, Tamsin, had passed by earlier that day, pressing a wrapped cloth into Lynette's palm, yarrow for strength, peppermint for calm, then walked away with no further instruction. Everyone knows what's coming. Everyone gives space in the village. Candles burn late, not because of worry, but because the night is holy. At dawn, the first cry is heard, not loud, not shrill, but certain. Elric kneels beside the hearth, holding Lynette's hand, which is damp with effort and strong with life. Tamsin, quiet and deft, wraps the newborn in linen, checks her breath, and nods. She's well, the midwife says simply, hungry, I think. The baby is placed in Lynette's arms, tiny, damp curls on her head, fingers like threads, grasping blindly. Lynette gazes down and breathes in deeply, her first breath as a mother. Elric presses a kiss to her forehead. No name is spoken yet. Only awe, only breath, only stillness. Outside, the birds sing as if they, too, had been waiting. 3 days pass. Then, on a soft morning, Elric and Lynette carry the child to the tree, the same oak beneath which they spoke their vows. A ring of neighbors waits. Not all, just a few. Those who helped. Those who knew. Eseld, the elder, stands with her walking stick. She nods once. What name will she carry? She asks. Lynette lifts the baby higher and says softly, Avalon. Elric repeats. For the wind. For the evening light. The baby stirs at the sound. The villagers each step forward, one by one, to lay a gift at her feet. A feather, a tiny carved bird, a sprig of thyme, a stone smoothed by the stream. None of it is valuable. All of it is priceless. A VLYN is kissed. On the forehead by Eseld, who whispers a blessing in the old tongue. And then the circle breaks, and life flows forward again. The weeks pass. Avalon sleeps often, or not always when it's convenient. She cries sometimes, when the bread must come out of the oven, when the hens need feeding. When the pot is almost ready to boil, but she smiles too often, softly in her sleep, and she begins to recognize her parents' voices. Elric sings to her while weaving baskets. Lynette rocks her with her foot while kneading dough. The cat, surprisingly tolerant, sleeps beneath her cradle. Neighbors stop by, not to intrude, just to check. Is she strong? Does she sleep? Did you stitch her a cap yet? Everything needed is done, bit by bit, softly. Winter comes around once more, but this time finds a home already warmed. The cradle sits closer. To the fire, the bread is sweeter now, laced with cinnamon, gifted by the peddler Myra, passed through again with the turning leaves. Avalon grows heavier in Lynette's arms. She babbles, reaches, watches the firelight dance on the walls. Elric makes her a wooden rattle. Lynette embroiders her a cap with oak leaves and stars. When the first snow falls, they take her outside, wrapped in 3 layers, and show her the world in white. She doesn't speak, of course, but she blinks. She smiles, and in that moment, all the world slows and settles and sings. By spring, Avalon crawls. By summer, she stands with help. And one golden morning, she toddles, wobbly but determined, toward the garden fence where a butterfly dances in. The air linnet gasps and runs after her. Laughing, Elric catches both and lifts them in a bundle of joy and breathlessness. They sit on the grass for a while. Wind in their hair, soil on their hands, She'll want a corner of her own soon, Lynette says. I'll build her a little bench, Elric replies. That night, he sketches it in the ashes of the hearth, a child-sized bench with leaves carved. Into the legs, and beside it, a path, because the journey continues, always softly. By the time Evelyn is 3, the garden has become her favorite place. Not the full garden, not yet, but a corner near the wall, where marigolds grow thick and low, where bees come lazily, and where the earth crumbles soft in her hands. Lynette gives her a basket to gather important leaves, and Evelyn takes her task seriously, returning with handfuls of moss, curled petals, and bits of twig shaped like tiny letters. Elric builds her the promised bench, small and sturdy. He paints it with boiled beetroot and ash, turning it a warm plum color. On the backrest, he carves her name, Evelyn. With vines curling through the letters, she outgrow it, Lynette says with a smile. All the more reason to make it now, he replies. That evening, Evelyn carries her basket to the bench, sets it down, and tells the cat all about her discoveries in great garbled detail, her words tumbling into one another like a slow stream over stones. The cat, dignified and ancient, purrs, as if understanding every word. One night in late autumn, wind whistles down the chimney, and rain whispers against the shutters. Lynette teaches Evelyn the candle game. They sit in a circle, Lynette, Elric, Evelyn, and place a single beeswax candle in the center of the table. Its flame flickers softly, casting gentle shadows on the walls. Lynette lowers her voice, speaking slowly. Watch the flame. Try not to blink. Try not to breathe too loudly. The candle listens. Evelyn giggles, then covers her mouth. Elric leans in, his face lit gold. If you're very still, he whispers, it tells you secrets. What kind? Evelyn asks, eyes wide. Soft ones, Lynette answers. The kind you can only hear when you're quiet inside. They sit in stillness for a time, just long enough for sleepiness to gather at the edges of Evelyn's lashes. Later, when she's tucked in, Elric turns to Lynette and says, What secret did it tell you? She smiles, that this is enough. Spring, Evelyn wanders for the first time. Not far, it's not lost. Just out of sight for a moment, Lynette, pulling weeds, looks up and finds her gone. Not by the garden fence. Not at the well. Not under the oak. Her heart quickens, not fear, exactly, but alertness. She calls once, then hears laughter, soft, drifting from behind the bakery. Evelyn is sitting with Mela the widow, helping her feed a basket of chicks. She came too. Visit, Mela says, stroking Evelyn's hair. Brought me a rock shaped like a rabbit. Lynette kneels and gathers her daughter close. You must tell me when you go, she says gently. Evelyn nods, solemn, but she was lonely, the child says, looking back at Mela. Later that night, Lynette tells Elric, she's kind, but bold. She gets that from you, he replies, smiling. They don't lock the door that night. They never do. But Lynette places her shawl on the hook near the latch. Just in case, time passes again, the winds shift. And with them, change. Lynette feels it in her body once more. The slow swelling, the familiar rhythm. Elric watches her closely, more experienced now. Gentler with his worry, Evelyn presses her ear to Lynette's belly and listens for whispers. I think it's a bird, she declares, a very small one. Tamsin comes again, older now, but still strong, and in the late hours of a rainy night, beneath a steady roof and beside a fire that never once went out, another child enters the world, a boy, quiet at first, then loud. Elric holds him, his face lit with quiet pride. Evelyn tiptoes in the next morning and peers at her new brother, wrapped in linen, asleep on Lynette's chest. What's his name? She asks. Lynette smiles. Bryn. Can I keep him? If you share? I'll Lynn. Nods once. And that is that later that week. Lynette removes the green and gold hand-fasting cord from the bedpost. She runs it through her fingers, remembering, then adds 2 new threads, one soft blue, one warm brown. She weaves them slowly into the existing pattern. Elric watches, saying nothing. When she's done, they hang it back on the post, now brighter, longer, richer. It's still ours, Lynette says. It always will be. But now it tells more. Of the story, Evelyn sees it that night and asks what the new colors are for. Family, Lynette says. Does that mean me too? Especially you. Evelyn places one small kiss on the cord and goes to bed with no further questions. The cord sways gently in the lamplight, as if breathing. When Bryn is old enough to sit, Elric begins teaching both children a simple game. Watching clouds, they lie in the meadow behind the cottage. All four of them, Elric, Lynette, Evelyn, Bryn, staring at the sky. Pick one cloud, Elric says, and follow it until it fades. They try. Some clouds are quick, some stretch out forever, trailing wisps like wool. Is that all? Evelyn asks one day. Elric shakes his head. It's enough. Bryn claps and points. Lynette strokes his hair. It becomes a weekly ritual, cloud watching. Followed by bread and jam on the grass, no lessons, no goals, just stillness. In the sky, one summer storm. The old oak is struck, not destroyed, but changed. A great branch splinters and falls, crashing into the meadow, scattering leaves like feathers. The next morning, villagers come to see. Elric stands quietly beneath the canopy, hand resting on the bark. Lynette holds Evelyn's hand. Bryn is too young to understand, but he touches the leaves gently, as if saying goodbye. Later, the fallen limb is cut and shared among the village, made into stools, walking sticks, carved spoons. Elric takes one thick round and polishes it into a table for the garden. On its surface, he carves a ring of wildflowers, and, in the center, the same words they spoke at their vows: simple, steady, shared. The tree remains, though a little smaller, and still, every year. It blossoms because some things break, ... and still bloom. Asterisk. So much time has passed since that first gathering under garlands and bells, and yet the story continues, not as a tale with a grand ending, but as a life shared, witnessed, and woven through with memory. One day, Evelyn and Bryn may have their own weddings, or not, but the legacy of love, quiet, patient, rooted, will remain like the echo of chimes on a spring wind. Asterisk. By the time Evelyn is 3, the garden has become her favorite place. Not the full garden, not yet, but a corner near the wall where marigolds grow thick and low, where bees come lazily, and where the earth crumbles soft in her hands. Lynette gives her a basket to gather important leaves, and Evelyn takes her task seriously, returning with handfuls of moss, curled petals, bits of twig shaped like tiny letters. Elric builds her the promised bench, small and sturdy. He paints it with boiled beetroot and ash, turning it a warm plum color. On the backrest, he carves her name, Evelyn, vines curling through the letters. She outgrow it, Lynette says with a smile. All the more reason to make it now, he replies. That evening, Evelyn carries her basket to the bench, sets it down, and tells the cat all about her discoveries in great, garbled detail, her words tumbling into one another like a slow stream over stones. The cat, dignified and ancient, purrs as if understanding every word. One night in late autumn, as wind whistles down the chimney and rain whispers against the shutters, Lynette teaches Evelyn the candle game. They sit in a circle, Lynette, Elric, Evelyn, and place a single beeswax candle in the center of the table. Its flame flickers softly, casting gentle shadows on the walls. Lynette lowers her voice, speaking slowly. Watch the flame. Try not to blink. Try not to breathe too loudly. The candle listens. Evelyn giggles, then covers her mouth. Elric leans in, his face lit gold. If you're very still, he whispers, it tells you secrets. What kind? Evelyn asks, eyes wide. Soft ones, Lynette answers. The kind you can only hear when you're quiet inside. They sit in stillness for a time, just long enough for sleepiness to gather at the edges of Evelyn's lashes. Later, when she's tucked in, Elric turns to Lynette and says, "What secret did it tell you?" She smiles. That this is enough. Spring Evelyn wanders for the first time, not far, not lost. Just out of sight for a moment, Lynette, pulling weeds, looks up and finds her gone, not by the garden fence, not at the well, not under the oak. Her heart quickens, not fear, exactly, but alertness. She calls once, then hears laughter, soft, drifting from behind the bakery. Lane is sitting with Mela, the widow, helping her feed a basket of chicks. She came to visit, Mela says, stroking Evelyn's hair. Brought me a rock shaped like a rabbit. Lynette kneels and gathers her daughter close. You must tell me when you go, she says gently. Evelyn nods. Solemn, but she was lonely, the child says, looking back at Mela. Later that night, Lynette tells Elric she's kind, but bold. She gets that from you, he replies, smiling. They don't lock the door that night. They never do. But Lynette places her shawl on the hook near the latch, just in case. Hash, hash, hash. Chapter 39. The arrival of a brother. Time passes again. The winds shift, and with them change. Lynette feels it in her body once more, the slow swelling, the familiar rhythm. Elric watches her closely, more experienced now. Gentler with his worry, Evelyn presses her ear to Lynette's belly and listens for whispers. I think it's a bird, she declares, a very small one. Tamsin comes again, older now, but still strong, and in the late hours of a rainy night, beneath a steady roof, and beside a fire that never once went out, another child enters the world, a boy, quiet at first, then loud. Elric holds him, his face lit with quiet pride. Evelyn tiptoes in the next morning and peers at her new brother, wrapped in linen, asleep on Lynette's chest. What's his name? She asks. Lynette smiles, Bryn. Can I keep him, if you share? Evelyn nods once, and that is that. Later that week, Lynette removes the green and gold hand-fasting cord from the bedpost. She runs it through her fingers, remembering, then adds 2 new threads. One soft blue, one warm brown. She weaves them slowly into the existing pattern. Elric watches, saying nothing. When she's done, they hang it back on the post. Now brighter, longer. Sure, it's still ours, Lynette says. It always will be. But now, it tells more. Of the story, Evelyn sees it that night and asks what the new colors are for. Family, Lynette says, does that mean me too? Especially you. Evelyn places one small kiss on the cord and goes to bed with no further questions. The cord sways gently in the lamplight, as if breathing. When Bryn is old enough to sit, Elric begins teaching both children a simple game. Watching clouds, they lie in the meadow behind the cottage. All 4 of them, Elric, Lynette, Evelyn, Bryn, staring at the sky. Pick one cloud, Elric says, and follow it until it fades. They try. Some clouds are quick. Some stretch out forever, trailing wisps like wool. Is that all? Evelyn asks one day. Elric shakes his head. It's enough. Bryn claps and points. Lynette strokes his hair. It becomes a weekly ritual, cloud watching. Followed by bread and jam on the grass. No lessons, no goals, just stillness. In the sky, one summer storm. The old oak is struck, not destroyed, but changed. A great branch splinters and falls, crashing into the meadow, scattering leaves like feathers. The next morning, villagers come to see. Elric stands quietly beneath the canopy, hand resting on the bark. Lynette holds Evelyn's hand. Bryn is too young to understand, but he touches the leaves gently, as if saying goodbye. Later, the fallen limb is cut and shared among the village, made into stools. Walking sticks, carved spoons, Elric takes one thick round and polishes it into a table for the garden. On its surface, he carves a ring of wildflowers in the center. It's the same words they spoke at their vows. Simple, steady, shared. The tree remains, a little smaller and still every year. It blossoms, because some things break, ... and still bloom. Asterisk. So much time has passed since that first gathering under garlands and bells, and yet the story continues, not as a tale with a grand ending, but as a life shared, witnessed, and woven through with memory. One day Evelyn and Bryn may have their own weddings, not. But the legacy of love, quiet, patient, rooted, will remain like the echo of chimes on a spring wind. Asterisk.